you know, there's absolutely nothing special about me. I mean, like zero, nothing. So if people really, you gotta want to get clean. I'm not saying you have to have God. I'd say I couldn't have done it without God. I've tried. But if you're willing to surrender to God and you're willing to put some effort into it, it's definitely possible, because if this guy can do it, anybody can do it. And that's really how I feel. And that's about it.
All right, JT, tell me where you're from.
I am originally from Houston, Texas.
And how about your family? Tell me a little bit about your family.
So my mom was born in New Jersey, moved here when she was 2 months old. So she's virtually, she's really a Texan. So I come from an Italian family, but being from Texas, they call it Italian. So we're Texas Italian, not Italian. My dad is from Nashville, but he also got to Texas when he was a few months old. So basically, my parents are Texans. My dad's family, they come from this tiny little town in central Texas called New Baden. It's literally like 5 people, I think, is what the population sign says. So it's tiny. But I really don't ever remember them being together. So they basically split up before I have any memory of. I can't even picture them together, much less being around when they were together. I moved a lot when I was a kid. I think I told you.
Yeah. And so with that, so how was your childhood?
It was good. I mean, it was just stable. My dad was in and out of my life. My mom did a great job as a single parent. Just one negative thing was we moved a lot. I had multiple stepdads. So with each stepdad would come and move. I hardly ever went to the same school more than 1 year. So I was constantly the new kid, and some of the moves were like really major. I started spending summers in New Jersey, which was really 12 miles from New York City. So we'd go to Times Square, and then we ended up in Canada. So I mean, some of the moves were major. Canada's a lot different than living in Houston, Texas. And it was an adjustment.
Sure. As a child, was there any type of abuse that you dealt with?
No. Now, I was molested by a relative. I think I was 5, but don't have a lot of memories. Now, I kind of remember more the aftermath of it than the actual abuse. I remember all the problems that created with the family. But no, there's no. Well, and I take that. I did have a stepdad that was abusive, but that was, I think he was only around for about 2 years, but I actually ended up in a foster home in Canada because I was abused. I thought we were going to kill each other at one point, and I just got out of there.
Yeah. And how old were you when you ended up leaving home?
I was 14, and that was in Toronto. You had to go to court to get in a foster home. I went through, it was called the Catholic Children's Society, and you also had to go to court to leave. And so I got permission from the court to come visit my family in Texas, at Christmas. And so everybody I know, the people I lived with, my girlfriend, all my friends, in Christmas of 1983, I said, I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. And never spoke to any of them ever again. I ran into my biological dad down here, completely by accident, and that really changed the course of my whole life. Worst decision I've ever made. Had I known what that was going to be like, I would have never made that decision. I mean, I was trying to get out of the foster home, and not that my dad was abusive or anything, but basically he lived with us for maybe 3 months, and so I'm in 9th grade, and basically I have my own apartment for the next 2 years. He would drop by, give us money or whatever, and so it was just crazy. I was a teenager trying to go to school with absolutely no adult supervision, and it was really cool at the time. We had a great time, but looking back, that's pretty much when my life started. It's a miracle I even went to school every day, much less all the crazy stuff that was happening at my house.
And so when did drugs for you come into the picture?
I think the first time I smoked a joint was in 6th grade with my dad, but then I probably started fairly regularly using it in about 8th grade. But it was, in Canada, pot was pretty hard to find. It was pretty expensive, so it was just, when we could afford it, we would do it mostly. We experimented with alcohol, but once I came back to Texas, second half of 9th grade, it was on. And, and it was, I was an addict from the get-go. So like, as soon as I smoked a joint, I went to smoke another one, and then the acid. And, as soon as one trip ended, I was ready. And it was like that with every drug, and it just progressed by, I was 16 shooting up cocaine on a bathroom stall of high school, listening to the football team get dressed. So, I mean, it progressed that fast. And you're probably too young to remember, but in 1986, they started that Just Say No campaign, the war on drugs, Nancy Reagan, and hey, it worked great for the pot because pot just disappeared. But what happened was everybody that sold pot suddenly sold coke, and we're talking pure stuff from Colombia, and it went from $100 a gram to $100 a 8-ball. So all of a sudden you couldn't get any pot. All this money that you spend on pot still sitting there, and now coke is just flooding the neighborhood. So the war on drugs kind of backfired. I think it still is. So I think it's just a losing battle. I mean, I thought about it one time, and so kids that get on a merry-go-round, at 4 or 5, what are they doing? They're altering reality. I mean, it's you're kind of like catching them. So I think there's that escapism that certain people are just always gonna chase, and I don't think locking people up and I don't think the legal system is the way to deal with that. I think places like this, or you got to get to the root of why you can't just say no. I mean, that was ludicrous when it was happening, and just the whole war on drugs. It's I don't even know how you fight a war on drugs. You don't know how you fight people in your own family. It just doesn't make sense. It's like a oxymoron to me. If they would take some of the money that they're using on locking people up and use them for recovery centers and treatment and try to get to the core of the problem, I think it'd be a lot more effective. But that's just me.
So I guess, like you said, you started doing cocaine. You were in high school, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so high school finishes up. I mean, what happened to you then?
Joined the National Guard, worked, and started selling cocaine. I've always worked, never really went a long period without, and just basically to fund my addiction. I had a girlfriend, I guess I was 22, 23, that gave me an ultimatum about coke, and it was her coke, and she, I really loved her, so I quit doing coke, just made up my mind to quit doing it, and quit doing it, and so there's a while there where basically I drank, smoked pot, did a lot of X. I was like a party drug, and X, it kind of, you just want to talk to people. You're just in love with everything. Like, you literally fall in love with an ashtray, and just like tell people your life story and it just makes you real empathetic. So I did that for a while and broke up with that girl. As I was getting closer to my 30s, I met, we never got married, but I met the lady that had my kids. And that's when I was introduced to opiates. I ripped a muscle in my chest, and he probably could have given me like 20 Vicodin, but the doctor that I went to gave me 60 Norcos, which each Norco is 2 Vicodin, and he gave me 3 refills, so 4 times 60 is 240 times 2. So basically, he gave me 480 Vicodin, and that was it. It was, I'd went my whole life without ever really taking pills like that. Never wanted to do them, had no interest, but those things, they make you feel so good that you don't really want to quit taking them, and then on that rare occasion that you do want to quit, you get so sick that it's just not even it's like a splitting thing, because it's the way I describe that withdrawal to people. So take the worst flu you've ever had, multiply that by 10, then tack on the worst diarrhea you've ever had, multiply that by 10, put those two together, drag that out over about 2 weeks. Add to that, if you just take these 2 little pills, all that goes away, and on top of that, you don't just not feel bad anymore, you feel great. So that's the drug that really got the hooks in me, that just no matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't quit. I mean, there were points where I didn't think it would ever, and it used to be really cheap. You'd get painkillers for a couple bucks on the street. You'd go to as many doctors as you wanted. They would all give them to you. But as the opioid epidemic spread, it got really hard. Those things went from $2 to $10, and it just got where it wasn't feasible. I couldn't, my whole paycheck would basically cover 2 days supply. So I switched to heroin. Cheaper, easier to find, and I was snorting it, not that seemed better, and that's what I try to explain to people. You got the pill poppers that don't think they're junkies, and essentially an opiate is an opiate is an opiate. It's all doing the same stuff to your body. So it doesn't matter if you're doing heroin, pills, snorting it, whatever, it's all the same. At the end of the day, it's all the same duck. So that's what happened.
Yeah. So then you're picked up the heroin addiction.
Mm-hmm. And we're talking over, I kind of got, I was about around 2000 when I got on opiates. So I maintained a good jobs, had 2 kids. People use that word functioning act. I don't really like to use that. It's more like surviving. And I hit it really well for a while. I don't think I think one job knew about it because me and the guy did them together, but it got progressively worse. And it just got, it didn't really contribute to me and my ex-wife splitting up. We just weren't compatible from the get-go. But when we split up, I went back traveling, doing construction, building prison fences, and then I really started, because there's nothing else to do. You're working all day and then in a hotel with the same people you just worked with. I was getting pills FedEx to me, or getting whatever I needed FedEx to me. But I came back home, and I don't know if I told you, but I think so. My parents have both had multiple surgeries and needed somebody to move in and help take care of them. So I was working in Alvin, which is where they live. They asked me if I'd move in with them, and I was literally creeping in their room in the middle of the night and taking painkillers out of their bottle. And that's when I crept in there in the middle of the night one night. And my stepdad has COPD, so he'll wake up with these coughing fits. And I got a handful of painkillers and was about to head back out of their bedroom. He had a coughing fit and woke up. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. I dove into their shower stall, man, and I'm just frozen and waiting for him to fall back asleep. But he's also got insomnia, so I'm standing there literally for 2.5 hours, just muscle cramps because I can't move. It was just insane. And the cat sitting there staring at me. He came in and used the restroom twice while I'm in there. And I'm just thinking, man, how am I going to get out? Because there's no way out of that bathroom. I'm looking at crawling through the drain. And finally he fell asleep literally 10 minutes before I was going to have to wake him up to bring me to work. And that's the day. I thought about that that whole day. And I was just you deserve to be caught. You should have been caught. And that's the day that I decided to call this place again.
And so that was in what year did you come to that?
So originally I came here in 2007, graduated in 2008. Stayed clean for about a year, went back to college, couldn't get a job with my degree, and ended up going back to work in a restaurant. This time, got here February 17th of 2020, so the shower incident probably happened at the beginning of February. And I'm so grateful because I was working. I knew I needed rehab, knew I needed recovery, but I kind of wanted to stack up a few paychecks, and I almost waited another month, and I'm just so glad that I didn't, because then COVID hit, and had I waited that month, this place would have been on lockdown. And my life's done nothing but trajectory's just gone straight up since I got here and completed the program. So it's probably the best thing I've ever done in my whole life. So I'm just, every day I think about that I was this close coming in. That's how close it was, and it made total sense at me at the time to not come, to put it off another month. And I don't even know, it had to be God that said, no, you need to go now, because it sure wasn't me. And, I really don't have an explanation for for why. Because I remember my boss, I told her, hey, look, I've got to quit and I can't give you any notice. And she was crying. And I just told her I had personal stuff to take care of. And it would have been real easy for me to say, okay, well, I'll go ahead and work another month. So I thank God every day that I didn't, because who knows what would happen. I don't think any junkie ever does that fatal dose thinking that that's the one that's going to kill him, and could very easily. Not that I was shooting up, I was snorting up that, I could have got me at any time, and now the stuff's cut with fentanyl. There's people dying left and right from, one little line, because it's not like you got the FDA, making sure your heroin's
Sure.
healthy.
So then you came through the mission the second time.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think about the second time is different from the first time?
People ask me that a lot. I usually give the same answer. The biggest difference is Tommy, and the staff, his handpicked staff, the curriculum they put together. So none of that was in place when I was here the first time. This was basically a sober living environment when I was here. You worked, and you had a class. They called it a class. Basically, you listened to this lady talk for 3 hours. And God bless her, Missy J's a great lady. Just it's so much better now that you're actually working on stuff. But then there were a couple differences about me. I think I was about 3 days into it when I hit my knees and just said, look, I'll do whatever you tell me to do, just be with me this whole time. Don't, because I can't do this without you. And that same day, I made a commitment to myself that I was going to work as hard on my recovery and my future as I had worked on my addiction, and that made a huge difference too, because I really just every day was busy doing stuff, and not just on the recovery aspect, but about what I was going to do when I get out of here. I think that's important too, to always be working towards something, and and even if that doesn't pan out, at least you were staying busy and you had a goal in mind. And so I stayed crazy busy while I was in here, whether it was working in the kitchen or taking computer classes or just whatever it was. I always had an end goal in mind.
And so I see you're working now. So tell me a little bit about that.
So I guess you can probably see the badge. I've got to be careful. What I tell people is I work for a major healthcare provider, because I just have to be really careful with that. But basically, I was trying to pursue recovery coaching, and this position opened up. I think Tommy's the one that threw my name in the ring, and my job, I'm actually a case aide / community health worker. I'm going to school right now to be certified as that. And so recovery coach is, my job encompasses that, but it's a lot broader than that. Basically, I'm a liaison to the community, whatever community that happens to be, and work in varied areas. Mine is guys with substance abuse. So I'm here at the mission a couple days a week. I work out of 2 other facilities, primarily with homeless people with substance abuse, and usually where substance abuse right around the corner usually is a mental disorder. And so I work with those guys. I'm part of a healthcare team that has therapists on it, and that's what we do. We try to help improve the health outcomes for people that are experiencing chronic homelessness and have mental health issues.
You think the mental health issues go in part with a lot of substance abuse?
So what they're finding, so drug addiction that's its own mental disorder. That's what it's listed as clinically. 9 out of 10 times there is something. One of the really super common ones is PTSD, depression, anxiety. Those are all mental disorders. So mental health gets a stigma associated. People just think, oh, you're saying they're crazy. 80% of Americans have a mental health issue at least once in their life, and so you're talking anxiety, depression. With the drug addiction, what we're finding a lot, especially with women, PTSD is there a lot, and a lot of the research now is showing. So with drug addiction, there's people like me who that part of your brain that tells you, hey, you've had enough, stop. It just doesn't work. But then there are people that can do a little bit. Okay, so you've got those two dichotomies. And what they're finding out is that the people like me that can't say no, that almost always there was something going on, in the 2 to 6 year old range where maybe there was some neglect or they weren't being nurtured correctly or abuse. That's almost always the case. And then along with that comes the PTSD. And if you were to walk around and screen all the guys here for PTSD, you'd be surprised at how many of them have it. Not just that, but how many of them have it and don't know they have it. So I do these assessments all the time with other guys. One day I'm just going to do one on me. And I was like, wow. So that's one that's real common. And goes undiagnosed a lot.
What do you think is the one thing that people don't realize about addiction?
That it can happen to anybody. People think it's a character flaw, because that's kind of how society sees it, even though it's listed as a disease. And even I'm guilty of that, because I have a hard time, because that first hit, that first shot, whatever form, that's a choice. Now the addiction takes over once that's into your body, and I can't look at addiction the same way as I look at a cancer patient. I mean, they did nothing to cause that. Well, maybe they smoked or whatever, so that's not always true. But you know what I'm saying. But still, the one that stands out to me, Rush Limbaugh, I used to listen to him, and he said, "I've got a cure for addicts, line them up and shoot them all in the head." And that's how a lot of people think. They look at us as disposable. And I get it. There's so many, there's been so much money thrown at this, and it's not doing any good. 90 plus something % of people are going to relapse. That's part of recovery. But I remember Rush Limbaugh saying, line them up, shoot them in the head. A lot of people agreed with him. And then all of a sudden he's strung out on Oxycontin. And that's how, it can happen to anybody. And I was like, well, should we shoot you in the head, Rush? That's what you're saying we should do to these other people. So that's, that it can happen to anybody, and that it's worth fighting for those people. And my hat's off to the staff here, because so many of the guys they see, they put all this energy and effort into them, then they just go out and relapse. But when you do have a success story, it's not just that one guy, it's that guy and that guy's kids and that guy's parents and that guy's victims that aren't going to be victims anymore. So I mean, it's got a huge ripple effect. And I hope we don't ever get to the point where people just give up, because we're like this far away from it right now, where people are just saying, look, it doesn't work. And I'm sure it could be better, and we're trying to get there, but we're not disposable. I don't think anybody is disposable. Everybody's a human being that deserves a second chance.